Welcome once again to Dulled History. You are not watching this on a bright screen in a warm room. You are standing on a shingle beach in western Norway, early spring of the year 870, and the wind coming off the fjord is so cold it feels like it has teeth. The longship in front of you, 75 feet of overlapping oak planks, is named Crackling. It smells of fresh tar, wet wool, and the faint sourness of 30 men who have not bathed since the last full moon. Somewhere behind you, children are crying because their fathers are leaving. Somewhere ahead of you is nothing but gray water for 21 days, maybe 30. You are 19 winters old, strong enough to row sixth bench on the starboard side, young enough that your beard is still patchy, and your mother still calls you Little Bear. Your name is Eirik Ingolfsson, though no one will ever carve it on a runestone. Tonight you are helping load the single most precious cargo the ship will ever carry, water. The water comes in barrels no bigger than a 10-year-old child. There are 27 of them, each lined with heated birch pitch and a thin skin of wet clay that the ship's carpenter swears will keep the staves from shrinking and leaking. Each barrel has been filled from the same mountain stream that feeds the farm where you were born. You know its taste the way you know your mother's voice, clean, cold, faintly sweet with moss. You have been told very calmly that these 27 barrels must keep 34 men alive at sea for at least 3 weeks. Do the arithmetic in your head. It is not comforting. The loading is a ceremony no one admits is a ceremony. Old Kettle One Hand, the man who has crossed to Greenland twice before, stands on the shore with a notched ash stick. Every time an oak bucket holding roughly 8 modern liters that is poured into a barrel is counted aloud. When the stick reaches 27 notches, Kettle drives it point down into the shingle like a grave marker. No more water will be taken aboard. There is silence except for the hiss of waves and the soft crying from the women on the slope. You personally carry 3 of the barrels. They are heavier than any sea chest you have ever lifted, and the wet clay lining makes the staves slippery. Your fingers leave pale prints in the black pitch. You wedge each barrel between the ribs of the ship exactly where the keel curves, low and amidship so the weight will not make her hog or sag. Between the barrels go smaller casks of sour whey, cloudy birch sap beer, and 1 sealed jar of skyr so thick it has to be cut with a knife. You try not to think of them as food. You already know they will think of them as hope. The sail is still furled. The oars are stowed like sleeping spears. Everything that can be lashed has been lashed twice. There is a final moment when every man aboard is allowed one last drink from the stream. You kneel on the stones, cup your hands, and drink until your teeth ache from the cold. The water tastes of snow that fell before you were born. You try to hold the taste in your mouth as long as possible, the way a miser holds a coin against his tongue to feel its weight. Then the order is given, the shore line is slipped, and 34 men bend to the oars, and Norway begins to slide away behind the stern. For the first hour you can still see individual pines on the mountains. You can still pick out the red cloak of your mother standing on the headland. Then the wind backs round to the northwest, the sail is hoisted, and the land becomes a low blue smudge. By the time the sun touches the western sea, it is gone completely. There is only the longship, the men, the barrels, and the moving plain of water that now owns you. Night falls quickly this far north in spring. The temperature drops until your breath smokes. Someone begins the slow rowing rhythm, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and the ship settles into the familiar creekansai that will be your only music for weeks. You wrap yourself in a sealskin blanket that still smells faintly of the seal it came from and try to sleep wedged between a water barrel and the curve of the hull. The barrel is already warm from your body heat. You rest your cheek against the staves and listen to the tiny slosh inside, a sound so small it is almost imaginary. 27 barrels, 34 men, 21 days, maybe 30. You understand without anyone needing to say it that the real voyage has already begun, not the crossing of the ocean, but the crossing of thirst. Every swallow you take from this moment forward will be weighed, measured, remembered. The water you drank on shore an hour ago is already leaving your body as sweat and breath and urine. Soon there will be no more coming in. You close your eyes and feel the gentle lift of the ship beneath you, rising and falling like a sleeping animal. Somewhere in the darkness, Kettle One Hand is already carving the first notch on a new stick, the one that will count the days until the barrels are empty. You are not afraid yet. Fear will come later, when the tongue begins to swell and the lips split and the mind starts inventing rivers that are not there. Tonight there is only the vast quiet of the sea and the soft breathing of men pretending to sleep. You press your ear to the barrel again. The water inside answers with a faint, secret gurgle, as if it knows exactly how long it has left to live and how many of you it can save. Far above, the stars are sharp and cold. The helmsman steers by the North Star, steady as a promise. You pull the sealskin tighter around your shoulders and let the slow roll of the ship rock you toward sleep. Tomorrow the rationing begins. Tomorrow the counting starts in earnest. Tonight there is still the memory of mountain water on your tongue, and the coastline of Norway is only a few hours behind you, close enough that, if you really tried, you could almost swim home. Almost, but you do not try. You close your eyes instead, and let the longship carry you out into the dark, where the only fresh water left in the world is locked inside 27 fragile barrels and the slowly shrinking bodies of 34 mortal men. Sleep comes, thin and uneasy, threaded with the soft slap of waves against oak, and the quiet breathing of water that already knows it will not be enough. The second dawn finds you somewhere southwest of the Faroes, though no one is certain exactly where. The sky is the color of wet iron, the sea the color of old pewter. There is no land in sight in any direction, only the slow, breathing swell that lifts Grayling rides like a cork. The wind is steady but light, so the sail hangs in lazy folds and the oars are out again. Your benchmate, a thick-necked man from Trondheim named Bjarni the Broad, keeps time with a low humming that is half song, half snore. You have been rowing since the middle watch, and your palms are already raw. At sunrise, Kedil, one hand climbs down from the steering platform, carrying the water ladle, a simple carved piece of alder wood holding exactly one Roman sextarius, about half a modern liter. He moves along the ship like a priest with a relic. Each man is allowed to open his mouth and tilt his head back. The ladle is placed against the lower lip, and the water poured in slowly so that none is wasted. You feel the coolness slide down your throat and spread through your chest like a secret. It is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted, and it is gone in 3 heartbeats. Bjarni licks his mustache and grins. Still sweet, he says. We are rich men today. No one has yet said the word ration aloud, but everyone feels it. The first 3 days are a kind of honeymoon with thirst. The body still remembers the stream on the shore, still believes more water is coming. Men joke about it. Someone claims he once went 5 days on nothing but snow and seal blood. Another insists his grandfather crossed to Greenland, drinking only his own piss warmed over a lamp. Laughter ripples down the ship, rough and easy. The jokes are armor. While we can laugh, we are not yet afraid. Breakfast is hard bread and a thumbnail-sized piece of dried cod. You soak the bread in the little water that clings to the inside of your mouth after the morning ration. The cod tastes of smoke and salt and the faint sweetness of the birch chips it was dried over. You chew slowly, letting the saliva build, letting the bread soften into a gray paste you can swallow without needing extra liquid. Every man aboard does the same trick. It is an old habit from lean winters at home, but here it feels like a prayer. By mid-morning the sun climbs and the wind dies completely. The sail flaps uselessly. The oars come out again and stay out. The sun is not fierce. This far north it never truly blazes, but it is relentless. Your wool tunic sticks to your back. Sweat runs down your spine and disappears between your buttocks before it can reach the waistband. You feel each drop leave your body like a coin spent. Somewhere inside your skull, a quiet voice begins to keep accounts. At noon, Kedil allows a second ration, the same half-liter, this time mixed with a splash of sour whey to stretch it. The whey is sharp, almost cheesy, but it coats the tongue and fools the body into believing it has drunk more than it has. You roll it around your mouth the way a rich man rolls wine, trying to make the sensation last. Bjarni belches contentedly. Better than mead, he lies. No one argues. Arguing wastes moisture. The afternoon is spent telling stories about water. Not heroic stories, those come later. These are small, greedy tailies. The spring behind old Ingolf's barn that never froze. The time a cow fell through the ice and they drank melted snow for a week. The trader from the south who carried lemons and let you bite once for a silver penny. Each story ends the same way, with the teller closing his eyes and smacking his lips as though he can still taste it. The stories are not for entertainment. They are sustenance. Night falls early. The sky turns the color of a bruise. Someone starts a low rowing chant, not loud, just enough to keep 34 backs moving together. Your throat is dry now, but not yet painful. You can still swallow without wincing. You lie down in your rowing space, head on the water barrel that has become your pillow. The wood is warm from the day's sun and smells faintly of pine tar and the stream you filled it from. You press your lips to a seam between 2 staves and imagine you can taste the water inside through the oak. Of course you cannot, but imagination is cheaper than thirst. On the third morning the jokes are thinner. The sun is stronger, the air tastes metallic. When Kettle comes with the ladle, there is no more chatter. Men simply open their mouths like nestlings. You notice that your urine has turned the color of dark honey and there is less of it. Good, you tell yourself. The body is conserving. Bjarni no longer grins. He stares at the horizon instead, as though land might appear if he looks hard enough. That evening the wind returns from the west, cold and damp. Someone suggests collecting dew from the sail at dawn. Kettle allows it, but only if every man wrings his own cloak into his own mouth. No sharing, no waste is sin. You fall asleep to the soft creak of the ship and the quieter creak of 34 minds, beginning to understand that the honeymoon is over. You dream of water, of course. Not the heroic torrents of saga, but ordinary, shameful things. A leaky bucket under the eaves, the puddle outside the cow byre where you used to lie on your belly and drink like a dog when your mother wasn't looking. You wake with your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth, and for one heartbeat you cannot remember where you are. Then the smell of tar and unwashed men brings you back. The stars are still there, bright and useless. The water barrel beneath your cheek has cooled. You count the days in your head. 3 gone. Perhaps 18 left, maybe 25. The arithmetic is no longer comforting. Somewhere forward a man coughs, a dry, rattling sound. No one tells him to be quiet. We are all learning the new rules. Speak softly, breathe through the nose, keep the mouth closed. Do not lick your lips because the salt only makes it worse. The jokes have stopped. In their place is a hush, almost reverent, as though the ship itself has begun to listen to the small, secret sounds our bodies make when they start to dry from the inside out. You pull the sealskin over your head to trap the moisture of your own breath and try to sleep. Tomorrow the real counting begins. 7 dawns have passed since land disappeared. You no longer count days by the sun. You count them by the number of notches Kettle carves on the ration stick. There are now 7 pale scars in the ash wood, and the stick itself has begun to feel like a living thing, a slow, patient animal that is eating your future one bite at a time. The ration has shrunk to a quarter liter per man per day. Kettle pours it into a small horn cup marked with a burned line. You watch the liquid tremble at that line, the way a guilty man watches the executioner's blade. When the cup is handed to you, you do not gulp. Gulping is for children and fools. Instead, you let the water sit on your tongue until it warms, until it becomes part of you rather than something passing through. Only then do you swallow. The act feels almost sacred, and you hate yourself for the reverence. Your tongue has begun to feel thick, like a piece of dried fish left too close to the fire. Words come out slower. When Bjarni tries one of his old jokes about drinking his own piss, his voice cracks halfway through and the laughter dies in 34 dry throats. No one finishes the joke for him. We have learned that laughter costs water. The body is a treacherous accountant. It hoards what little it receives and spends it grudgingly. Sweat has almost stopped. The skin feels tight and papery. Urine is now the color of strong ale and smells sharp enough to sting the eyes. You piss into a bucket passed hand to hand along the benches. Kettle measures it, nods, and pours it overboard. Too little and the kidneys are failing. Too much and we are stealing from tomorrow. Every drop is evidence. Sleep is no longer rest. It is a shallow, twitching country where you dream of water in cruel detail. Rain hissing on hot stones, the slow drip from the milking pail, the way meltwater runs off a pine needle in spring. You wake with your mouth open, cheek pressed to the barrel again, trying to suck the oak for moisture that is not there. The staves are warm and taste only of tar and old dreams. Kettle has appointed 2 barrel guardians, silent, broad-shouldered brothers from the Faroes named Hallvard and Grim. They sleep with their backs against the water casks, axes across their knees. No one has tried to steal yet, but everyone understands the rule. The first man who breaks a barrel dies before the water hits the bilge. It is not cruelty. It is arithmetic wearing a human face. On the 8th morning, the sky is cloudless and the sea is glass. The sail hangs like a dead thing. The oars come out and stay out. 12 hours of rowing in shifts. Your shoulders burn, but the pain is distant, muffled by the larger ache in your throat. Salt crust has formed in the corners of your mouth. When you smile, something you do less and less, your lips split and bead with blood. You lick the blood because it is wet. The taste is iron and shame. Conversation has changed. Men no longer speak of women or farms or the silver they will earn in Greenland. They speak of water the way monks speak of God, in hushed, obsessive fragments. Someone remembers a well in Rogaland so deep the bucket took 7 heartbeats to hit bottom. Another swears he once saw a spring that bubbled straight out of a cliff face, cold as winter and sweet as mare's milk. The stories grow taller with each telling, but no one calls them lies. Lies are currency now. At night the temperature drops and frost feathers the edges of the sail. You huddle together under shared cloaks, 34 furnaces trying to warm one another with breath that grows drier every hour. Someone begins to whimper in his sleep. No one tells him to stop. We have all heard ourselves make the same sound. The mind begins its quiet rebellion. You catch yourself staring at the sea as though it might turn fresh if you wish hard enough. When a gull lands on the yardarm, you feel a spike of hatred so pure it frightens you. The bird drinks the ocean and lives. You would kill it for one feather dipped in that water. You do not say this aloud. You do not need to. Every man aboard is thinking the same thought. Kettle gathers the crew at dusk on the 9th day. His voice is a rasp, but it still carries. He tells us the truth we already feel in our bones. At the current rate, the barrels will be empty in 12 more days. Greenland is at least 14 days away, perhaps 18 if the wind stays fickle. There is a silence so complete you can hear the creak of the mast and the soft slosh inside the casks, a sound that has become both lullaby and torment. Then Kettle does something unexpected. He takes the ration cup, fills it to the line, and pours it slowly, deliberately, over the head of the youngest boy aboard, 14 winters, freckled, homesick. The water runs down the boy's face in shining tracks. For one heartbeat, no one breathes. Then the boy begins to cry, not from cruelty but from sheer gratitude, and the sound breaks something open in every chest. Kettle's message is clear. This is what we are spending. This is what we are becoming. That night you dream you are drowning in fresh water. You wake gasping, mouth open to the stars, and for a moment you cannot remember which is the dream. The ration stick has 9 notches now. The sea is still glass. The sail is still dead. The oars are still moving, slower now, because every stroke costs moisture we do not have. You row with your eyes half closed, conserving even the water it takes to blink. Your world has narrowed to the small circle of deck beneath your bench, the warm barrel at your back, and the slow, patient carving of the next notch that will tell you how many mornings you have left. Somewhere inside your skull, a calm, scholarly voice, the voice that will one day belong to monks copying manuscripts, begins to speak. A man can live 3 weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. We are on day 10. The arithmetic is no longer theoretical. You close your eyes and feel the ship lift and fall, carrying 34 drying bodies toward a coast that may or may not be there. The stars are very bright. You no longer bother to wish on them. Wishing is wet work. Day 11 begins with a sky so perfectly clear it feels like mockery. The sun rises pale and hard, the color of heated bronze, and by the time it is a hand's breadth above the horizon, the deck is already too hot to stand on barefoot. You have taken to wrapping your feet in spare strips of sailcloth, but the heat still seeps through. Every surface burns. The oars blister palms, the mast burns fingers, even the water barrels are warm to the touch now, as though the sea itself is trying to cook what little remains inside them. The ration has fallen again. Kettle now pours only 1 horn cup for every 2 men, shared mouth to mouth. You and Bjarni have become partners in thirst. When the cup comes, you let him drink first because he is bigger and rows harder. He lets you drink second because you are younger, and he is ashamed to take the last drop in front of you. The water is no longer cold. It tastes of oak and faint clay and something metallic that might be blood from your cracked gums. You roll it under your tongue until it is the same temperature as your body, then pass the cup back. The horn is empty before it leaves your fingers. Men have begun to lick the dew that forms on the inside of the hull at night. You wake before first light, crawl on hands and knees along the bilge, and press your tongue to the cold, tarry planks where condensation gathers in tiny beads. It tastes of pine pitch, salt, and the faint sourness of 34 men breathing the same air for almost 2 weeks. It is barely a mouthful, but it is wet, and wet has become the only virtue left in the world. Someone invents a new ritual. Every dawn the youngest boy climbs the mast with a woolen cloak. He spreads it like a sail to catch whatever moisture the night air has left, then wrings it into a bowl. On a good morning, this yields perhaps half a cup for the entire crew. The boy's name is Svein, and he has stopped speaking. He simply climbs, rings, descends, and curls up again beside the mast step like a dog that has done its trick. No one thanks him. Gratitude costs saliva. The sail itself has become a shrine. When the wind dies, which is most of the time now, Men crawl forward and lick the heavy wool where overnight dew has settled. The cloth is stiff with salt and old tar, but the moisture is there if you work for it. You have seen grown men on their knees, faces pressed to the sail like penitents at an altar, sucking gently so as not to tear the weave. Kettle allows it. He understands that dignity is a luxury we can no longer afford. Clouds appear on the 14th day, high and feathery, the kind that promise everything and deliver nothing. 34 heads tilt upward in perfect unison. For an hour no one rose. We simply stare at the sky the way starving men stare at a locked granary. The clouds drift, thin, shred, vanish. Someone begins to weep quietly. It is the first tears any of us have produced in days, and they are thick, almost sticky. The weeping man, his name is Thorvald the Red, tries to catch them on his sleeve to wring into his mouth, but the way we wring cloaks, he manages 2 drops before the tears stop. Salt, of course. The body is efficient even in grief. Kettle tries a new cruelty born of kindness. He orders every man to chew a small pebble. The stone keeps the mouth busy, tricks the brain into making saliva. It works for perhaps an hour. Then the pebble becomes a torment, clicking against teeth that feel suddenly too large for the jaw. You spit yours overboard on the 16th morning and immediately regret it. Bjarni keeps his. He says the taste of granite reminds him of home. The mind begins to offer bargains. You find yourself calculating impossible arithmetic. If 3 men were to die tonight, the rest would gain an extra week. The thought arrives fully formed and reasonable, the way a tax assessment arrives. You are horrified, but not enough to stop thinking it. You notice others doing the same sums behind their eyes. No one speaks of it. Speaking would make it real. Hallvard and Grim, the barrel guardians, have not slept in 4 days. Their eyes are sunken, cheekbones sharp as axe blades. They sit with their backs to the casks, axes across their knees, staring at nothing. Yesterday Grim smiled at a wave and whispered, "Hello, little sister," before catching himself. Hallvard slapped him, not hard, just enough to bring him back. The slap sounded like dry wood breaking. No one protested. We understand the necessity. On the 17th night the wind shifts to the north and the temperature falls. Frost forms on the oars. You wake with your beard stuck to the barrel by frozen breath. For one delirious moment you think it has rained and try to lick your own face. The ice tastes only of wool and despair. Bjarni watches you do this and says nothing. There is nothing to say. Kettle gathers us again at dawn. His voice is a croak, but it still commands. He tells us the barrels are down to less than a third. Greenland is still a shadow on the edge of maps no one here has seen. He does not say we are going to die. He does not need to. Instead, he orders every cloak, every spare scrap of cloth, spread across the deck at night to catch whatever the sky might give. He orders the sail lowered and turned inside out so the cleaner side faces up. He orders silence between dusk and dawn so that no breath is wasted on words. We obey because obedience is easier than hope. That night you lie on your back staring at the stars and try to remember what rain sounds like. Not the hard drumming of a summer storm, but the soft hush of spring rain on thatch, the way it used to lull you to sleep when you were small and the world still made sense. You cannot summon the sound. Instead, you hear only the slow creak of the ship and the soft, animal breathing of men who have begun to sound like drying leather. Somewhere forward, Svein, the mastboy, begins to sing. It is not a proper song, just a fragment of a lullaby his mother must have sung him. His voice is cracked and thin, but it carries. One by one, the others join in, not loudly, just enough to keep the tune alive. The song has no words about water. It is about sheep and green hills and a girl with yellow hair. It is the driest song in the world, and the most beautiful thing you have ever heard. When it ends, there is silence again, deeper than before. You understand that we have moved past bargaining. We are no longer asking the sky for rain. We are simply waiting to see which of us it will kill first. The ration stick has 17 notches. The sea is glass. The sky is bronze. The barrels are warm and quiet, as though they too have accepted their fate. You close your eyes and feel the slow lift and fall of the ship, carrying 34 almost empty bodies toward a coast that may be only a story we tell ourselves to stay sane. Somewhere inside your chest, a small, traitorous part of you begins to hope the next cloud bank will break. The rest of you knows better. On the 20th morning, the water barrels give their last honest sigh. Kettle lifts the bung of the final cask, tilts it, and only a dark, reluctant trickle the color of weak tea slides out. 34 men watch in perfect silence as he pours this remnant into the horn cup. There is barely enough to wet the bottom. He looks at the crew the way a farmer looks at a field after locusts, then quietly drives the bung home again. The sound is soft, final, like a coffin lid closing. No one panics. Panic is wet work. Instead, there is a collective exhale, almost peaceful. We have rehearsed this moment in our dreams for weeks. Now that it is here, it feels inevitable, the way winter feels inevitable when the first leaf turns. Kettle speaks only 4 words. Open the secret barrels. They are not secret in the sense of being hidden. Everyone has known they were there, wedged beneath the stern platform, wrapped in reindeer hides and lashed so tightly the staves have left bruises in the wood. There are 6 of them, smaller than the water casks, black with age and pitch. They have never been opened on this voyage because to open them too early would have been to admit defeat while hope still lived. Hope is dead now. Hope has been boiled away with the last mouthful of stream water. Halvard and Grim cut the lashings. The hides come off like old skin. The smell that rises is astonishing, sharp, cheesy, almost violent. It is the smell of survival pretending to be food. The first barrel contains surmilk, literally sour milk. It is skyr that has been allowed to ferment far beyond anything a farmer would feed his family. The surface is covered in a gray-green crust thick enough to stand a spoon in. When Kettle breaks the crust, the liquid beneath is the consistency of thin porridge and the color of storm clouds. It smells like a wet sheep that has been sick. He ladles it into the horn cup. The first man to receive it is Bjarni, because he is the strongest and therefore the most dangerous if he breaks. Bjarni sniffs, grimaces, then tilts the cup back in one motion. His throat works. His eyes water. He does not gag. He simply hands the cup to you and says, voice like splitting kindling, drink slow. It bites back. It does bite. The taste is acid and salt and something fungal that coats the tongue like moss. Your stomach tries to retreat into your spine, but you force it down because it is wet and because Bjarni is watching to see if the younger man will shame him. The liquid burns all the way to your belly, then spreads a treacherous warmth. It is the first thing you have swallowed in 24 hours that was not measured in mouthfuls of air. The second barrel is whey, left over from cheese making the previous spring and allowed to sour until it could etch iron. It is thinner, almost clear, with a faint yellow tinge and a smell that makes the eyes sting. Men drink it anyway. Some retch quietly over the side, but most keep it down. The body has learned new rules. If it is liquid and it stays inside, it is water. The third and fourth barrels contain a drink the Greenlanders call Hvalmjálk, literally whale milk. It is not milk at all. It is the rendered fat of seal or whale mixed with water, fermented with sour whey, and buried in the ground for a full year. The result is a gray, oily sludge that separates into clear liquid on top and a thick sediment below. The liquid tastes of rancid butter and the sea. The sediment tastes of despair. Both are wet. Men scoop it with their fingers and lick them clean like bears at a beehive. The fifth barrel is the strangest. It contains fermented birch sap collected the previous spring, boiled down with barley and hops until it is barely recognizable as beer. The alcohol has long since turned to vinegar, but the vinegar is still liquid, and the acidity cuts through the furry coating on every tongue. Men who have not smiled in weeks find themselves grinning at the shock of it. Vinegar is pain, but pain is feeling, and feeling is proof we are still alive. The sixth and final barrel is the one no one speaks of until now. It contains urine, collected daily for the last week, boiled slowly over a whale oil lamp until the worst of the ammonia is driven off, then filtered through charcoal and allowed to cool. The smell is still unmistakable, but it is cooler than the air and it is wet. Kettle drinks first. His face does not change. Then he passes the cup. Some men turn away. Most drink. There is no ceremony, only the quiet efficiency of men who have decided that dignity is a shore we left behind weeks ago. You drink last. The taste is exactly what you expected and worse. It is warm, salty, and carries the faint sweetness of fear. Your body recoils, but you hold the liquid in your mouth until it stops fighting, then swallow. It settles in your stomach like a stone that has decided to stay. After the secret barrels are opened, the rules change. There is no more ration stick. Men drink when they need to, but only from the sour barrels, never more than a cup at a time. The guardians remain, but their axes are no longer needed. Thirst has become a parliament inside each skull, voting every minute on whether to live or die. So far the votes are close. The effect is immediate and terrible. The sour liquids scour the mouth and throat like sand. Men's gums bleed, teeth feel loose, but the swelling in the tongue begins to go down. The mind sharpens the way a blade sharpens when it is suddenly possible to think again, to plan, to hope. Hope is dangerous, but it is also wet. Kettle orders the sail soaked in seawater and spread on deck to cool the air beneath it. Men crawl under the damp wool like animals seeking shade. The salt stings cracked skin, but the cool is cool. Someone begins to sing again, not the lullaby this time, but a slow rowing chant from the old days when there was still water in the world. Others join in. The sound is cracked and ugly and perfect. On the 22nd night, a small miracle occurs. A flying fish, driven mad by the lamp's flame, leaps aboard and flops on the deck. 34 men move as one. The fish is dead before it stops twitching. Its body is sliced into 34 paper-thin slices. The flesh is warm and tastes of pure ocean, but it is wet. Men chew slowly, reverently, letting the juices run down their chins. Someone weeps again, but this time the tears are thin and clear. The secret barrels will not last forever. There are perhaps 4 days left in them, maybe 5 if we are careful. Greenland is still a prayer whispered against the horizon, but for the first time since the water ran out there is something inside the body besides dust. You lie down beneath the damp sail with the taste of vinegar and urine and flying fish in your mouth and understand something new. Survival is not clean. It is not noble. It is simply the refusal to stop swallowing whatever the world decides to pour down your throat. The stars wheel overhead. The ship creaks. 34 men breathe the sour, living air of the secret barrels and wait for the next gift the sea might bring, whether it be land, rain, or the quiet mercy of death. So far the sea has not decided. Day 25. The secret barrels are little more than damp memories now. The last ladle of H-Valmjalk was scraped out at dawn and divided 34 ways. Each man received a mouthful the color of old pewter and the texture of warm grease. It slid down throats that no longer bothered to protest. After that, Kettle quietly hammered the bungs back in and turned the empty casks on their sides so no one would be tempted to lick the staves. The gesture was gentle, almost tender. Empty barrels are graves. It is bad luck to leave them upright. The world has become very simple. There is the ship, the sea, the sky, and the slow, rhythmic creaking that tells you the oak is still holding. Everything else has been boiled away. You no longer dream of water. You dream of silence, of a place where nothing is asked of you except to breathe. Hallucinations arrive politely, like guests who have been expected for weeks. They do not burst in shouting. They simply appear at the edge of vision and wait to be noticed. On the 26th morning, you see a white stag standing on the waves 50 paces off the starboard bow. Its antlers are made of ice. It regards you with calm, ancient eyes and then walks away across the water as though the sea were a meadow. You watch until it dissolves into mist. No one else mentions it. Either they saw it too and have decided not to waste breath, or your mind has finally stepped off the edge alone. Both possibilities are acceptable. Bjarni has begun speaking to his oar. He calls it Astrid, after a girl he left pregnant in Trondheim. He apologizes to the oar when he rests, thanks it when the ship moves. Sometimes he strokes the loom the way a man strokes a lover's hair. His voice is soft, almost shy. The rest of the crew pretend not to hear. Pretense is a form of mercy now. Kettle no longer carves notches. There is no point. Time has become a country without borders. Dawn and dusk are only different shades of the same exhaustion. The sun rises, travels a hand's breadth, and sets again, and nothing has changed except the cracks in your lips have grown deep enough to plant barley in. Discipline holds by the thinnest thread. 2 nights ago, Thorvald the Red tried to drink seawater. Hallvard caught him with his face over the side, gulping like a calf at a trough. Hallvard did not strike him. He simply wrapped one enormous arm around Thorvald's chest and dragged him back, whispering, "Not yet, brother, not yet." Thorvald wept saltless tears and curled into a ball. Since then he has sat motionless, staring at the horizon as though waiting for it to apologize. The mind invents rivers the way a starving man invents feasts. You see them clearly, silver threads winding between green hills, waterfalls that roar like laughter, pools so still you can see your own reflection smiling back. Sometimes the rivers flow across the deck, and you have to step carefully so as not to disturb them. Svein the mastboy spends hours trailing his fingers through these invisible streams, collecting imaginary water in cupped hands and pouring it into his mouth. His lips move soundlessly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On the 27th day, the wind returns from the southwest, warm and damp. It smells of something that might be land, though no one dares say the word aloud. The sail fills for the first time in a week and the oars are shipped. The ship lanes and begins to run. Men who have not stood upright in days stagger to their feet, faces turned into the breeze like flowers tracking the sun. Someone laughs, a dry, barking sound that turns into coughing. The cough spreads down the deck like fire in dry grass. No one tries to stop it. Laughter is wetter than tears. That night the sky clouds over for the first time since the honeymoon days. The clouds are high and thin, but they are clouds. Kettle orders every cloak, every scrap of sail, every empty barrel turned mouth up on deck. Men lie on their backs with their mouths open, willing the sky to take pity. Nothing falls. The clouds drift apart again, revealing the same indifferent stars. Someone whispers, "The gods are thirsty too." It is the longest sentence anyone has spoken in days. Delirium has its own hierarchy. At the bottom are the silent ones who simply stare. In the middle are those who speak to people who are not there. At the top are the ones who still row when there is no need, moving their arms in perfect, empty strokes long after the oars have been stowed. You have joined their company. You row in your sleep, wake rowing, pause only long enough to lick the salt from your forearms before beginning again. The motion keeps the madness orderly. Kettle gathers the crew one last time. He no longer stands. He sits on the steering platform with his back against the useless tiller. His voice is barely audible, but every man leans forward to catch the words. He tells us that Greenland is close. He can smell it in the wind, feel it in the way the swells have changed. He tells us we have done what no crew has done before. Then he does something astonishing. He opens the very last container none of us knew existed. It is a small sealed jar of honey, thick and dark, brought as a gift for the Greenland Jarl. He breaks the wax seal with his thumbnail and passes the jar. Each man is allowed to dip one finger and lick it clean. The honey is so sweet it hurts. 34 men weep without sound, tears finally thin enough to fall. After the honey, there is nothing left to give except the body itself. Men begin to drink their own sweat, wringing out tunics into their mouths. The taste is beyond description, but it is wet. Some chew the leather of their shoe soles to soften them, then suck the moisture that has soaked in over weeks of walking the deck. The leather tastes of feet and tar and old blood, but it is wet. On the 29th night, the temperature drops sharply. Frost forms on the rigging. Breath freezes in beards. Men huddle together in piles like hibernating bears, sharing the last heat of their bodies. You lie with your cheek against Bjarne's back and feel his heart beating slow and steady, the only clock left in the world. Somewhere in the dark, Svein begins the lullaby again. This time every voice aboard joins in, cracked and tuneless but together. The song rises into the frost and hangs there like smoke. You understand now that madness is not the enemy. The enemy is giving up. As long as the mind can still invent rivers, as long as the tongue can still form the shape of a song, the body will keep rowing. The hallucinations are not betrayal. They are the last ration, the sole issues to keep the flesh moving. At some point during that endless night, you see your mother standing at the prow. She is wearing the red cloak she wore the day you left, and she is holding out a cup of water so clear you can see the reflection of stars in it. You reach for it, but your arms are too heavy. She smiles the way she did when you were small and had fallen in the snow and says, "Not yet, little bear, a little longer." Then she is gone, and you are crying, and the tears are wet, and you lick them from your lips before they can freeze. Dawn comes pale and cold. The sky is the color of skimmed milk. The sea has changed. The swells are longer, heavier, carrying the weight of a continent behind them. Kettle stands somehow he stands and points dead ahead. There is nothing to see yet, only the place where sea and sky meet in a hard straight line. But every man aboard feels it in his bones, the way a horse feels home long before the stable appears. The oars come out for the last time. Men who have not stood in days rise without being asked. Shoulders that have forgotten how to move remember. The ship leans, gathers way, begins to run before the wind that now blows steady from the south. 34 skeletons wrapped in skin pull in perfect unison. No one counts the strokes. There is no need. The rhythm is older than language. You row with your eyes closed, tasting honey and urine and salt and the faint sweetness of your own tears. Somewhere ahead there is land. Somewhere ahead there is water that does not taste of death. You do not know if you will live to drink it. You only know that you are still moving, still refusing the sea's invitation to lie down and rest forever. The ship creaks. The wind hums in the rigging. 34 almost empty men pull toward a horizon that has begun, very slowly, to forgive them. It is the 31st dawn since Norway vanished. The sky is the color of watered milk. The sea the color of iron fields when it has been left in snow. You are rowing in your sleep again when the cry comes, not shouted, because shouting is impossible, but a cracked, wondering croak that somehow carries the length of the ship. Land. Every head turns as one. At first there is nothing, only the hard horizon and the dull glare of low sun on water. Then the line thickens, darkens, becomes something solid. A low ridge of mountains, white at the peaks, black at the feet, rising out of the sea like the spine of a sleeping beast. Greenland. Not the green land of saga, but a wall of stone and ice that looks as if it has been waiting for us since the world was made. No one cheers. Cheering requires breath we do not have. Instead, a sound moves through the crew, half sob, half prayer. The noise a man makes when the rope finally stops tightening around his neck. Oars are shipped with trembling hands. The sail, patched and salt-stiff, is hoisted for the last time. The wind has mercifully stayed behind us, pushing the longship forward like a mother pushing a child towards safety. Kettle stands at the steerboard, one hand on the tiller, the other clutching the rail to keep himself upright. His beard is white with frost and salt, his eyes sunken so deep they seem to look out from another world. He does not smile. He simply nods once, the smallest movement, as if acknowledging a debt that has finally been paid. The coast grows slowly, cruelly slowly. Every swell lifts the ship and drops her again, teasing, as though the land itself is not certain we deserve to reach it. Men who have not wept in weeks begin to weep now, thin, almost soundless tears that freeze on their cheeks before they can fall. You feel the tears start in your own eyes and do nothing to stop them. They are the first clean thing your body has produced in a month. By mid-morning, the mountains have faces. You can see individual glaciers like frozen rivers spilling down black cliffs, fjords biting deep into the rock, patches of snow glowing pale rose in the sunrise. There is no greenery yet, only stone and ice and the vast, indifferent beauty of a land that has never needed men and never will. But there is fresh water locked in that ice, and that is enough. The ship begins to move faster, carried now by current as well as wind. The water changes. The long Atlantic rollers shorten, become choppier, more urgent. The hull shudders with each wave. Someone laughs, a sound like breaking twigs, and the laughter spreads until the whole crew is shaking with it, half mad, half alive. Kettle steers toward the mouth of a narrow fjord where a thin silver ribbon of waterfall spills from the heights. He does not ask if this is wise. There is no choice. The ship rushes forward, sails straining, timbers groaning. Spray lashes the deck, cold and clean and impossibly wet. Men open their mouths to it the way flowers open to rain. The waterfall grows until it fills the world. It is perhaps 200 feet high, a white blade slicing the cliff, throwing up mist that catches the sun in pale rainbows. The roar is the loudest sound you have heard in weeks, louder than thunder, louder than your own heartbeat. It is the sound of the earth remembering how to be generous. Kettle lets the ship drift until the bow is almost under the fall. Then he cups his hands around his mouth and gives the only order that matters. Drink. The longship slides beneath the plume. Cold, sweet, living water crashes onto the deck in a solid sheet. It is so pure it hurts. Men throw themselves flat, mouths open, letting the torrent pour over their faces. You lie on your back with your arms spread like a crucifix and feel the water hammer your chest, your throat, your cracked lips. It is painful, glorious, impossible. You open your mouth and drink until you choke, then drink again. The water tastes of snow older than your grandfather, of stone that has never known the touch of salt, of mercy. Someone is screaming with joy. Someone else is praying in a language no one recognizes. Svein the mastboy has climbed the prow and is holding his face directly into the fall, eyes closed, arms out, as though being baptized into a new life. Bjarni sits with his head thrown back, letting the water run into his beard, laughing and crying at the same time. You have never seen a happier man. The cascade lasts only minutes before the current drags the ship past, but it is enough. Bellies that have forgotten how to hold liquid swell and cramp. Men vomit pure water onto the deck and laugh at the waste because there is more coming, an entire mountain of more. Kettle steers into a small cove where a stream, black with peat but fresh, spills across rounded stones. The keel grinds gently onto gravel. No one waits for orders. 34 men leap overboard into knee-deep icy water and wade ashore like drunken giants. You fall to your knees in the stream and plunge your whole head under. The cold is a hammer blow to the skull, but you keep your face submerged until your lungs burn, then surface gasping, hair streaming, eyes wide. The water is so cold it feels hot. You drink until your stomach aches, until the world tilts, until you are certain you will burst. Then you drink again. Men roll in the shallows like dogs. They scoop water into their helmets, into their boots, into their cupped hands, and pour it over one another's heads in clumsy benediction. Someone has found a patch of crowberries under the snow and is stuffing them into his mouth until the juice runs purple down his chin. Someone else is weeping into the stream, whispering apologies to his dead wife, to his mother, To the gods he cursed for 31 days. Kettle is the last to leave the ship. He stands on the prow for a long moment, looking back at the empty barrels, the salt-crusted sail, the deck scarred by 1,000 desperate fingernails. Then he steps into the water and wades ashore without looking back. When he reaches the stream, he does not drink at once. He simply kneels, places both hands flat on the surface, and lets the current run between his fingers. Only then does he lower his face and drink, slowly, deliberately, as though tasting every second of the miracle. Night falls early in the fjord, but no one wants to sleep. A fire is kindled from driftwood and the last of the whale oil. The flames seem impossibly bright after weeks of darkness and lamp smoke. Men sit in a loose circles, passing a horn cup now filled to overflowing with cold stream water. They drink, pass it on, drink again. No one speaks of the voyage. There will be time for stories later, when tongues no longer feel like wood and memories no longer cut. Tonight there is only the fire, the sound of water, and the vast, healing silence of having arrived. You sit with your back against a boulder still warm from the day's sun. Your stomach is distended, your skin raw from cold water and wind, your lips split and bleeding, but you have never felt more alive. Bjarni sits beside you, gnawing on a piece of dried reindeer meat someone found in the emergency cache. He offers you a strip. You take it, chew slowly, and realize you can taste again. Salt, smoke, the faint sweetness of lichen the reindeer ate. You begin to cry without sound, the way you did beneath the waterfall. Bjarni puts a heavy hand on your shoulder and says nothing. Nothing needs to be said. Above you, the mountains rise black against a sky full of stars sharper than any you have ever seen. Somewhere high up an eagle screams, a thin, triumphant sound. The stream keeps talking to itself in its own language of water over stone. You listen until the sound and the starlight and the warmth of the fire braid together into something that feels almost like peace. Later, when the fire burns low, Kettle stands and speaks for the first time since landfall. His voice is ruined, but it still carries. We are not the first to come this way, he says. We will not be the last, but we are the ones who drank the sea and spat it out again. Remember that when the young ones ask how Greenland was won. Then he takes the empty honey jar, fills it with stream water, and pours a libation onto the ground. The water hisses where it touches the coals. 33 men watch in silence. When the jar is empty, Kettle sets it upside down on a rock like an offering. You fall asleep sitting up, head against the boulder, mouth open to the night air. The last thing you feel is the slow, steady drip of water from your hair onto your chest, each drop a promise that tomorrow there will be more. The longship rests on the shingle, scarred and salt-white, but unbroken. 34 men sleep the sleep of the newly born. Greenland has accepted its debt. Spring has come again to the fjord in western Norway. The same shingle beach where Skraeling once loaded her 27 barrels now hosts a smaller, quieter gathering. 31 men have returned. 3 did not wake after the first night on Greenland stones. Their bodies were laid under cairns of black rock and left to the ravens. The rest have come home changed in ways no saga will ever record. You stand barefoot on the pebbles, letting the cold water of the home stream run over your feet. It has been 211 days since you last felt this current. You remember the exact number because you counted them the way a prisoner counts scratches on a wall. Your beard is full now, your shoulders broader, your eyes older. The boy your mother called Little Bear is gone. In his place stands a man who has drunk urine, vinegar, and whale-fat milk and lived to tell no one about it. The village has prepared a feast, but it is a careful feast. No one roasts whole oxen or pours rivers of ale. They know what the voyage cost. Instead, there are small things offered with large reverence. New milk in wooden cups, thin oatcake still warm from the stone, a single smoked salmon divided into 31 parts. You take your piece and hold it for a long time before eating. The taste is almost too much. Salt, smoke, the faint sweetness of birch smoke in the curing shed. You chew slowly, eyes closed, letting each flavor arrive like a messenger from a country you thought you would never see again. Your mother stands a little apart, watching. She does not rush forward. She simply waits until you open your eyes, then nods once, the smallest movement as if to say, I see you are still my son, but you are also something else now. Later, when the others are singing, she will press a cup of fresh milk into your hands and whisper, drink slow, little bear. The world is not going anywhere tonight. You will drink, and the milk will taste exactly like childhood, and you will cry without sound into her apron the way you once cried beneath the Greenland waterfall. Kettle has become a quiet man. He no longer tells stories. When children ask about the voyage, he only says, we went, we came back, that is enough. But every spring, on the day the ice breaks in the fjord, he walks alone to the highest hill and pours a horn of water onto the ground. No one follows him. Everyone understands it is payment of a debt that will never be fully discharged. Bjarni married the girl he left pregnant. They have a son now, red-haired and loud, who already tries to lift oars too heavy for him. Bjarni named the boy Svein, after the mast boy who never woke on Greenland's shore. When the child Svein asks why his father sometimes wakes shouting in the night, Bjarni only holds him close and says, "Bad dreams about being thirsty." He never explains more. Some debts are paid in silence. You have developed small rituals no one taught you. You can no longer pass a spring without stopping to drink, not in reverence, but in simple astonishment that water can come out of the ground sweet and cold and free. When it rains, you stand outside with your face to the sky long after everyone else has gone in. Your wife, you married quietly last winter, no longer tries to call you indoors. She understands that rain is a conversation you still need to have with the world. Some things you will never do again. You cannot bear to see water wasted. If a cup is overturned, you feel it like a physical blow. You flinch when children throw snowballs, remembering how we once would have licked the snow from the deck planks. When the ale is passed at feasts, you take only a mouthful and pass it on. Your friends laugh and call you monkish. You smile and say nothing. They have not tasted what you have tasted. The longship Crackling was broken up last autumn. Her oak was too salt-eaten to trust across another ocean, but her keel now serves as the ridgepole of the new boathouse. Sometimes, when the wind is right, you can still smell pine tar and old thirst rising from the beams. You stand beneath it for long minutes, listening to ghosts creak in the rafters. There is a scar across your left palm, where you cut yourself on purpose the night before departure, mixing a drop of blood with the last cup of stream water as an offering to whatever gods watch over desperate men. The scar has turned silver with age. When your daughter, she is 3 winters now, asks about it, you tell her you were bitten by a gull. She laughs and kisses the scar better. You let her believe the simple story. Some truths are too heavy for small shoulders. On quiet evenings, you walk to the headland where your mother stood in her red cloak the day you left. The view is the same. Gray water, distant islands, the long horizon that once swallowed you whole. You bring a cup now, plain wood, nothing special. You fill it from the stream, walk to the cliff edge, and pour half onto the ground. Then you drink the rest slowly, tasting every drop the way a rich man tastes wine. When the cup is empty, you turn it upside down on a rock the way Kettle taught you in Greenland, a small private ceremony no priest ever sanctioned. You have learned that survival is not a single bright moment of triumph. It is 1,000 small surrenders, to thirst, to terror, to the body's animal refusal to keep breathing when the mind begs to stop. It is the choice, made anew each morning, to open your eyes and accept whatever the day decides to pour down your throat. Sometimes, when the wind comes from the west carrying the smell of open sea, you feel the old panic rise like bile. Your heart races, your tongue swells in memory, and for one breathless instant you are back on that deck with empty barrels and a sky that refused to cry. Then the smell of pine smoke from the village drifts across the water, or your daughter's laughter rings from the yard, and the moment passes. You breathe, you stay. You have learned the difference between memory and drowning. The sagas will sing of Eric the Red and Leif the Lucky. They will not sing of the 31 men who crossed an ocean on sour milk and stubbornness. That is as it should be. Songs are for heroes. We were only men who refused to die of thirst on a perfectly good sea. Tonight the northern lights move across the sky like slow green fire. You stand on the beach with your wife's hand in yours, your children asleep in the house behind you, the cup resting empty on its rock. The water you poured out has already soaked into the earth. The water you drank is already becoming tomorrow's blood and breath. You lift your face to the dancing sky and speak aloud for the first time in years the words you once whispered only inside your skull. Thank you for the thirst. It taught me how to drink. Then you turn, walk up the path between the birches, and go home to the sound of a stream that will never run out as long as you are alive to hear it. The debt is paid. The circle is closed. 31 men came back carrying the weight of 34. They will carry it gently, quietly, for the rest of their lives, and when the last one dies, the sea will still remember. But tonight the water is sweet, the fire is warm, and the long voyage is only a story the wind tells itself when no one is listening. Sleep well, little bear. The barrels are full again.